Thousands of Americans die by suicide each year, and veterans are especially at risk. The reasons are many and complex, but there is help for our heroes. Our special town hall, Healing America's Heroes, Preventing Veteran Suicides, will examine solutions to the problem, including personal stories of hope and survival. Next.
Thank you to the Eunice Joyce Gardner Charitable Foundation for its leadership support of the Health Channel.
Welcome to Healing America's Heroes, Preventing Veteran Suicides. I'm Olga Villaverde. This is such an important subject. Our veterans give so much to our country, and those who feel lost and hopeless need help and understanding. Let's first watch this PSA from Make the Connection, an online resource from the Department of Veterans Affairs that offers some insight to what some veterans are feeling. It's called Free Fall.
As a veteran, you get a lot of advice, but wisdom's harder to come by. A lot of people imagine themselves in our shoes without understanding the weight on our shoulders. The truth is, few can understand the pressure of finding your own way after serving in the military. But few isn't none. Steady yourself. You're not alone. You've got support. Learn more at maketheconnection.net.
And we'll talk more about how to find that help, but let's look at the numbers from the 2022 National Veteran Suicide Prevention Annual Report from the Department of Veterans Affairs. In 2020, the latest statistics from the VA, over 6,000 veterans took their own lives. That's an average of about 17 suicides a day. In the same year, suicide was the second leading cause of death among veterans under the age of 45. And the rate of veteran suicides was 57% higher than non-veterans. We have a great panel of guests today to help us better understand those numbers and what can be done to make sure those veterans who need help get it. Joining us is Dr. Suresh Rajpara, the Associate Chief of Staff for Mental Health and Behavioral Sciences at the West Palm Beach VA Healthcare System. Also joining us, Dr. Myriam Glémaud is the Suicide Prevention Program Manager at the West Palm Beach VA Healthcare System. Also joining us tonight, Montel Williams, television host, U.S. Marine and Navy veteran, and a well-known advocate for veterans. And finally, James Heaton, the Senior Director of United Way of Broward County's Mission United, which helps veterans and their families with the transition back to civilian life. I'd like to welcome all of you and thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
And thank you for having us.
Thank you. I want to remind our viewers that if you have a question for our panel, please email it to us at questions@allhealthtv.com. That's questions@allhealthtv.com. Dr. Rajpara, I'd like to start with you, if you don't mind. We understand that the rate of veteran suicides is a crisis, but please give us an overview of the scope of the problem. And there is some good news as well, right?
Yes, that is definitely good news. And before I start, I would like to salute to our American heroes, our veterans. As you know, you just showed us the statistic. The suicide is one of the major U.S. public health problem that impacts our veteran population at a rate 4 times higher than general population. However, as you mentioned, there is definitely good news. Suicide prevention is among top VA priorities, and Veterans Health Administration has prioritized suicide prevention by issuing a statement that suicide prevention is everyone's business. Having said that, the good news is that, therefore, the rate of suicide is on decline. We used to have a rate of suicide at 18 to 19 suicides per day, and now it is at 17 suicides per day. So the goal is to get to zero suicide, and
Absolutely.
I'm sure we should be able to get to zero suicide by implementing evidence-based treatment modalities such as zero suicide model, evidence-based treatment, effective resource, and effective interventions, and we should be able to do it together.
Thank you, Doctor, and I so agree. Dr. Glémaud, what are some of the signs you would say a veteran might be considering suicide? Because we need to be aware.
Absolutely. Some of the signs is somebody who having feeling of hopelessness, someone who feel that they are a burden to the family. And if a person is giving away their item, that's also a sign. Someone dealing with depression, dealing with PTSD, that a lot of our veterans, unfortunately, are dealing with PTSD due to the trauma that they lived through during service. So all of these are signs that we can look at. And it's really important that for those of you, the loved ones of a veteran, to be aware of those signs so that you can see them and also reach out to make sure that they're getting the help they need. That's really how we want to be able to prevent suicide, by having all hands on deck and everybody's looking at making sure that we are aware of these signs and symptoms.
All hands on deck, James. That is so important. But let's talk about the families and maybe even the caretakers. They get affected as well, don't they?
Absolutely. So there's not only is there secondary trauma to experiencing suicide by a loved one or someone really close to you, but also the effects of losing a head of household or losing the health or monetary benefits that were being provided to the family unit by the veteran. Also, there's a sense of these families that we talk to that say, well, what could I have done different to prevent this? So there's a huge impact to the family.
Montel, you've been pretty open about discussing your suicide attempt. Would you mind telling us and sharing with us what led to it and how you found peace?
You know, Olga, I tell you, for me, it was about now 22 years ago when I went down that path. I went down that path because I had just been diagnosed with, a chronic debilitating illness that, characterized itself with extreme neuropathic pain that didn't seem to ever have an end. And so just like you're in the PSA, you feel like you're spiraling out of control and spiraling into the depths of depression by yourself, not recognizing that there are others out there and there's other ways to help yourself. There's ways to get help. So one of the things that I did, fortunately and blessedly, I took the second to recognize the damage my loss would be to my family. And
we lost Montel, but a very powerful story talking about the damage he would have done to his family and probably realizing that he wanted to remain with them and find that peace. We're going to get Montel in just a couple of minutes. Let me share now the 2022 annual report from the VA, which says that a majority of suicides among male and female veterans involve firearms, over 70% among males and nearly 50% among female veterans. The VA created a video about gun safety. Take a look at this.
Hey, brother.
Hey.
Something I've been meaning to talk with you about.
Yeah?
We've been through a lot together in the service. I feel I owe it to you. So I hope you don't get upset at me bringing it up.
What is this about?
We both know that you're in a bad place right now. And maybe until you feel like you're getting better, we need to do more to make sure that you're okay, in case you end up having another bad night like you did last week. Let's do something about your gun until you're feeling better.
Okay.
Man, listen, I'm like you. Always had guns, always will. I love to shoot, and I want to protect my home and my family, so I get it. Maybe we need to focus on keeping you safe for a while. Let's store the guns somewhere else for a while. Or you can lock it up and I'll hold the key until you say you're ready for it. Whatever works for you, man. Listen, we both always had each other's back, and I'm still here for you.
Okay, man. I'm listening.
Dr. Glémaud, I received right now a text from a viewer. His name is Paul, and it's from Facebook. Thank you, Paul. He writes this: not all VA hospitals are the same, but at one in Texas, they will turn you away when they need help. What can we do? That's very important.
It is important that we are here for our veterans, and also a lot of time is that we want to make sure that we are meeting the veterans' needs, veteran mental health or even medical need. Here at the West Palm VA, we have an open house, we have an open door policy where we want to make sure that our veterans are safe, our veterans are okay. A lot of time, what I want to make sure that our veterans know that we have a new number, which is 988, and they can press 1. and 988 is effective every day, 24/7, every day at any moment. You can call, and 988, someone will answer the phone call. They will talk to a veteran and try to find out what's going on. And from that phone number, somebody who's trained about mental health de-escalation, giving you some strategies how to deal with what you're dealing with at this time. And in addition to that, we also get a message from my team where we are making sure that we're reaching out to the veteran in addition to whoever spoke to them to the VCL, Veteran Crisis Line. We are there for our veteran. We want to make sure they are aware the same way they've been there for us, making sure that we are keeping ourselves safe. We are there for them too.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that information. Another viewer question, Dr. Rajpara. I'm going to give this one to you. It's from Amy on Facebook, and she writes the following. What measures have been taken to make sure veterans are not put on hold when calling a hotline? Your thoughts on this?
Yeah, definitely. We do provide ongoing training and education to all our staff who are responsible responding to those calls, making sure that the veterans are not kept on hold, and that training is on a continuous basis. So we do emphasize that veterans' calls are important. They are critical. They may be in need of emergent or urgent care. So make sure that those calls are responded and acted on as soon as possible without any delays in responding.
Thank you so much. Another viewer question, and thank you so much for sending these in. Can you talk about how gaps have to be properly identified? And Dr. Glémaud, we're going to give this one to you. And forgive me, let me start from the top. Can you talk about how gaps have to be properly identified and intervened during active service prior to discharge from service?
The transition from military to civilian life is very important because it is considered as a transition period that could be a risk factor that could also bring a lot of changes. So what we want to make sure is that the veteran, when they're transitioning from military to civilian life, is that they can access services either from their TRICARE as they're leaving, and also when they're coming, the VA is open to all. And we want to make sure that they can come to the emergency department, also calling 988. 988 is a number that applies to everyone, service member, veterans, and even family members can call on behalf of a veteran. We want to make sure that they can access this service so that there is no gap in services.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. James, I'd like to pose this question for you that just came in as well. This is from a veteran's wife, and it deals about firearms. She writes, quote, "My husband is a veteran and has been acting depressed and moody lately, and I'm afraid of what he might be thinking. We have a rifle and a handgun in the house, and I'm worried about them. What should I do?" Your thoughts on this one, James?
Yeah, it's very tricky because, a lot of veterans view their firearms as an extension of themselves. So having that conversation with a loved one can be, it's a serious conversation that needs to be had, but it can be very tricky. As my fellow panelists have said, calling 988 right now as a proactive way to get some guidance, to get some information, to get some help is one of the best things that you can do. And you can do that as a spouse and as a family member, is call 988 and make sure that you're aware of safe ways to store the guns, to store them in a safe place. And also get some assistance for your loved ones now before anything gets escalated.
Thank you, James. And we have that Veterans Crisis Line that I'm going to show you in just a couple minutes. But right now, these are so sad stories. And Dr. Rajpara, your thoughts on this as well?
Yeah, I do agree with that. I think the important thing is, the safety first. It's very important for this veteran to get mental health professional help. At the same time, to work with this veteran, educate him about safe gun keeping. We do provide gun locks at West Palm Beach VA, and those are very helpful in preventing and reducing morbidity and mortality because of suicidality. So it's important to get either depression or mood disorders assessed by mental health professional, get them treated, and also educate the veteran that locking gun or keeping gun as safe as possible is a temporary solution until he or she feels better, so that he or she does not feel that his rights are violated.
Thank you, Doctor. We want to share this brief video from a veteran who felt desperate, but thankfully was able to find help.
I'm just glad that I didn't take my life. I'm glad that I know my purpose. The guilt and the shame is gone. I'm glad that I can stand tall and talk about it in adversity. I was in during the Vietnam era. I was on a new ship, LST, tank landing ship. We carried Marines and supplies and things like that. I made the fatal mistake of walking the other way through the middle of the ship. And when I was walking, they accosted me. And he began to rape me. So I hid it. It didn't happen. I was walking and one passed by me. He said, if you ever say anything about what happened, we'll throw your black ass overboard. So it was fear. I couldn't sleep. I started having nightmares. I would work hard during the day and I would hide the drinking and drugging. I had a nightmare and I got drunk for a week and they fired me. But I had the courage to dial 1-800-273-8255. That's the crisis hotline. And they coaxed me for about 45 minutes and they took me to the psych ward at John Dingle, and I started with group therapy, one-on-one, unipsych therapy. It was much needed therapy that I am so eternally grateful that I'm a veteran. I love living today. And these tears aren't painful anymore. I'm a proud U.S. Navy disabled PTSD, military sexual trauma survivor. I'm not a victim anymore.
What a powerful, powerful story. Montel, I know we got you back. He said, I love living today. We were hearing your story about being here for your family. It's so important to hear these words.
I think just like what that veteran just said, when we find out that, in our darkest moments, in darkest times, we think we're alone. And what we don't realize is that there's so many resources out there for us. There's so many ways that we can get help. It's just a matter of reaching deep, digging deep, and asking for it. But you won't ask for it until you educate yourself. That's one of the things that I think, though I think we do a great job in providing some services, but one of the things that we don't offer to the veteran is a boilerplate, an opportunity to go out and do the research yourself. Find out what your happiness quotient is. Find out that, guess what? Yeah, the pain was really excruciating today, but guess what? I lived through yesterday, and I'm living through today. So I'll live through tomorrow. It's not a matter of ending it all. It's a matter of beginning again. And that's what we got to be truly impress upon people. And help is out there. There's help out there in many different forms. Unfortunately, and I'm going to cut this short real quick, unfortunately, we've been caught up in modalities of treatment that have not been as efficacious as a lot of people think they are. And we're starting to see that it's things like prolonged exposure therapy for PTSD. We know it's never worked longer than 35 to 37%. Never worked better than that. Yet, we still keep pushing that on our veterans, and our veterans are pushing back. So now there are treatment protocols out there that work, and we need to start recognizing those. One thing I was told when I started my journey was that anything transformative in medicine, especially when it comes to psychological medicine, is always met with the most vehement and adamant resistance. So now it's time for us to open up and say, yeah, we got 17 veterans a day taking their lives. We have over 100 civilians a day taking their lives. And we've got to get a grip on this and deal with this as a nation.
Thank you, Montel. I want to show the Veteran Crisis Line real quick for anyone that's watching. I think it's important to always show this. There it is, 988, then press 1, or you can text 838-255. James, I have a viewer question, and it's a veteran who is watching. Thank you for your service, and thank you for the question. He asks, warning signs of drugs and alcohol leading to these issues from a veteran. Your thoughts on this, James?
Yeah, there's so many warning signs that can just show their face when there's depression, when there's anxiety, when there's these severe symptoms of some sort of underlying trauma. So it's important for family members, for caregivers, for friends, for colleagues and coworkers to be able to identify these signs. If you have a loved one or a veteran that you know, and you notice that they're drinking a little bit more or start using drugs or maybe just look like they're starting to go through stuff, start that conversation, open that conversation with them. Say, hey, is everything okay? Do you need help? Do you need me to help you? It's okay. It's okay. It's important to let people know that it's okay to get help. There's so many services out there. The VA is doing an amazing job at really making an impact on veteran suicide and treatment for folks that really need it. So just being able to connect folks with those services and let them know that it's okay and that there's help out there.
Absolutely. And as we heard in Robert's video, veterans could be facing a number of issues that could cause them to think about or commit suicide. Take a look at this, starting with transitioning back to civilian life, homelessness, loneliness, combat-related medical and mental health conditions, mental health disorders, and general medical conditions. Dr. Glémaud, the transitioning back to civilian life could be so difficult for veterans. What are some of the issues they face, and how can we help them?
Actually, it's a major change for a veteran to go from military life to civilian life because they had a camaraderie, they had a team that they were working on, and all of a sudden they're facing life on their own. So we do have a lot of services that we want to make sure that we are providing to our veterans when they're coming back and they're transitioning. We have the mental health department where they can come in. We have possibility of walk-in until a certain time that they can come in. And also, if they're dealing with any issue, call 988. I've had veterans calling because they have dental pain. And sometimes with something like that, you feel so overwhelmed, and they called, and then we call them after, and then making sure that we're connecting them with the right resources within the VA. Because we are a large system, sometimes the veteran doesn't know where to call, which number directly, but 988 really gets you where you need to be, because we also get these calls and make sure that they are getting connected. We want to make sure they have the connection they need, so they know that we are here and we care and we are there for them.
Thank you so much. The VA, by the way, did a breakdown of suicides by race and sex. Out of the veterans who died by suicide in 2020, 34% were white, 14% were Hispanic, and 14% were black. Female veterans also died by suicide at a higher rate than the female population in general. Montel, looking at these numbers, your thoughts on this?
Again, I think what we have to do, and we do it, yes, the VA is doing a great job. That number that you put up is a great number. They have to make sure that that's available. And veterans need to understand that you can reach out and ask for help. One of the things that Dr. Heaton had said was the fact that, unfortunately, sometimes people are reticent to say to a friend, hey, are you feeling okay today? Hey, is everything okay? Can I help you? Family members are reticent because they're maybe afraid of the traditional pushback that some veterans will give them. But you can't stop asking. You have to ask. If you don't ask, you may lose that friend. So it's incumbent upon us to take a step outside. Even if you're going to make them mad, they're going to get pissed at you. Because you say, dude, that's a fourth drink in the last hour. I'm just saying, if they're going to get mad at you, let them get mad. But at least you may be saving their life.
Thank you so much, Montel. We're running out of time, but I do want to show this video. It's basically a video that shares a very important message to all veterans, everyone out there, of knowing that you are not alone. Take a listen.
Order up. Thank you. When I want to give up, I try to focus on getting to the next minute, then the next hour, and the next day.
It might not seem like it right now, but there are people out there like me who want to listen and support you for the long haul.
And I found someone to talk to, someone who listened.
You are not alone.
I love that message, and it's a message we need to make sure all veterans are aware of, no matter where you are or what you're facing. I want to get final thoughts from everyone. Montel, I'm going to start with you. I've got about 15 seconds because we are running out of time.
Sure. I would like to throw out just a website that people can go to. It's called rnrproject.org. It's a protocol that I'm working on now for over 12 years. It's called the RTM protocol that is now being utilized in Poland and the Ukraine, utilized by the state of New York, New Mexico. It's been selected by the ISTSS as a certified treatment for PTSD. So our vets need to reach out and see if they can get some help.
Thank you, Montel. James, I got about 10 seconds. Final thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to say that this is not just an issue that impacts veterans. This is an issue that civilians need to care about. And everyone has a family member who served or has a friend who served. So learn more about this. Ask them how they're doing. Ask them if they're okay. Get them directed to services. Calling 988 yourself if you have a concern about a friend is something that you're able to do.
Dr. Rajpara, about 10 seconds or less. Or Dr. Glémaud, go ahead. 10 seconds, dear.
Yeah. Go ahead.
What I want to make sure is that we know that all of us have an impact on what we can do for our veteran. It's everybody's business, suicide. So that's why we want to make sure we reach out to the community, to all the agencies, and also that's what we're doing with our task force, making sure that the veterans live in the community. We want to build a village for veterans to feel safe. It takes all of us.
Thank you so much. And good night to all of you. Thank you so much for joining us. Dr. Rajpara, I'm sorry, but we ran out of time.
It's okay.
Thank you for joining us. The crisis line one more time if we can. It's very important to always put that up for our viewers. And remember, we're here for you and you are never, ever alone. Thank you so much for your time and have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Thank you to the Eunice Joyce Gardner Charitable Foundation for its leadership support of the Health Channel.